What we'd like to do today for those who are online is run through the investment opportunity. But before we do that, I'd just like to give just a little bit of background around the investment opportunity, in a sense that it is equity crowdfunding. And equity crowdfunding came into Australia in January 2018. So it's relatively new way of raising capital. What I wanted to do was just outline for everyone. This has come back from a bit of feedback from Trent and some of the investor sessions and questions he's getting. The difference between equity crowdfunding and other types of crowdfunding. Equity crowdfunding entails that the purchaser of the share of the company, of the investment opportunity, gets shares in the company. So that's really important to know. You will end up as a shareholder in the Dargo pub with ordinary shares to your name that will come in under a share registry and a share certificate. It's very different to, let's say, rewards-based crowdfunding, where you just give a donation and you might end up with a bit of product of a, whatever the product is that they're raising capital for. We've heard potentially before of Kickstarter or Indiegogo as platforms globally and also here in Australia that do rewards-based crowdfunding. So this is different in the sense that you put your money forward, you get shares in the company. In relation to the Dargo Hotel, and we'll get Trent to run through this, you also, as an investor and shareholder, get investor rewards. And in this particular case, they're tiered investor rewards based on the amount of money that you contribute to the pub. So as a shareholder, you have rights under the constitution of the company. That's all on the page, the offer page that's there. You also are entitled to dividends that the Dargo Hotel may pay to their shareholders in future years. So let me just kick off by saying to Trent, congratulations. I think this is terrific. We've done many crowdfundings, equity crowdfunding through our market. This is the first one of this type. And I think it's understanding sort of how it works is one thing for the investors online to just get their head around. Can you just give a bit of background on that, how the opportunity came up, the fact that the crowdfunding or the purchase of the property is contingent upon the success of the crowdfunding, and little things just in relation to that?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. And as I say, I'm Trent Hadfield. I'm sort of putting all this together. And I suppose just a bit of background, the Halls, the current owners of the Dargo Hotel, they listed it for sale late last year, late 2022. And as somebody, I grew up in East Gippsland, fifth generation from East Gippsland, and spent a lot of my youth up in properties around Dargo. So I've always had a strong affinity with this area. And when I saw that the property had gone on the market, I was just going, well, this is an absolute perfect opportunity to take that to the people. I know what it means to everybody, and there might be some people on this call that might not be local, might not even visited Dargo before, but it really is the heart of the high country for Victorians and an absolute hotspot. And it means so much to everybody. And so I saw that and went, this is the perfect opportunity to do it and take this to the people. And to be honest, I wouldn't be going down this path if it wasn't for the equity crowdfunding. So we've got this arrangement forward. As Tim said, it's contingent on the successful raise of these funds that will then be purchasing the Dargo Hotel. And that's both the property and the business, as well as the Dargo Motor Inn across the road, 11-bed motor inn with the residents, the hotel, and I won't go too far into it. I'm sure you've all seen the website and everything, very well appointed. It's a character place. It's got all the memorabilia and all those sorts of things, and that's why people come here. As the character of the place. So that's sort of the background, and why we said, yep, let's do this. Here's an opportunity to take it to the people, and it's a great investment. And that was why that's stacked up for myself as somebody that's got professional business advisor and accountant background. They've gone, it makes sense to do it this way.
Okay. Just a little bit then on potentially the use of funds other than buying the property. You're raising more than the actual sale price of the property. How much is that, and what will that money go towards?
Yeah, so the raise, and we've got a range we're raising. So the minimum raise gets the whole deal done and puts, we're working on around $200,000 in as a starting capital there. If we raise additional, then that increases our starting capital, which is a great place to be. Fundamentally, we don't want to change the Dargo Hotel. You know, it is special because it is what it is. We're not going to come and change it. We're looking to do small improvements, maintain it, and those sorts of things. So the additional funds go really to implementing some of those things which modernize some of the operations. Right now, for instance, it doesn't have a point of sale system. Well, obviously an essential thing, especially when you've got investors and all the things. So introducing those sorts of pieces, small improvements here and there physically. And long term as well, it's very important to us that we keep the Dargo community going. You know, it is the heart of the community. So we also will continue to support the community as the current owners always have, too, in those ways. But it's really going to be a process of just small improvements here and there. And those funds will enable us and give us the comfort to be able to do that too.
Okay. And as a potential investor, aside from putting in, say, $1,000 or $5,000, I get my shares, my ordinary shares in the company.
Yep.
You're equal alongside everybody else. What else? And then this is sort of just an opportunity to talk about those investor rewards. What else do I get as an investor aside from my ordinary shares?
Yeah, so it's the ordinary shares, and then we've sort of done a tiered level. So once it's over $1,000, there's going to be a 10% discount. There's going to be a couple of, if you're putting in more, some accommodation vouchers. If you're putting in $10,000, we call it a feed for life sort of thing. Each time you come and visit Dargo Hotel, have a meal on the pub. And then the really exciting one, I know I'm excited about it, and everybody you talk to is we're going to have, you know, obviously as a company, we have to have an AGM. So what we're going to do is incorporate that into an owners weekend. We're probably looking at a date probably in October each year to do that, where we can all, as the owners group, converge on the hotel here, have the AGM, get the formalities done and out of the way, and then, you know, kick on for a good night. I can envisage probably maybe a bit of a open bar for an hour to start with, and then, you know, a band, all that sort of stuff, and really make that, you know, absolute highlight of the year for the owners group is that owners weekend.
Your share certificate is your entry ticket, so to speak. And only
yeah,
those
per se. Yeah, we're actually doing a challenge coin. Not sure how many people are familiar with that as well. It's about a 4 cent across unique coin, which the owners have put in $1,000 more will get one of those. It actually doubles up as a bowl opener, so a bit of a novelty there as well. And that's sort of your token of that you've invested in at that level. Also, your token in when you come here and go, you know, can I get my 10% off? Well, you have that coin with you. The evidence is that.
And Trent, what is the minimum investment parcel? What's the lowest or smallest amount that I can participate in this raising to become a shareholder?
So we set the minimum at $400, and then sort of it's up from there. And we've been really encouraged, and Tim might go into a bit more detail, for retail investors able to invest up to $10,000. Qualified investors can go over that, and we've been encouraged by the number of people who have expressed investment at higher levels, but it starts at $400 to be a part of it.
Yeah, just to that, for those online, the ASIC regulations stipulate that any retail investor can invest up to $10,000, but not beyond. In order to invest more than $10,000, you need to be what is deemed a sophisticated investor. And there's certain parameters, guidelines around how you become a sophisticated investor. It involves speaking to your accountant and getting a certificate from them. I'm interested, and this has come up in a number of sessions previously with you, the management structure. Just be interested in hearing a little bit more about that as well, please.
Yeah, so sort of similar to a public company, you know, the shareholders aren't involved in day-to-day operations. We've got 2 directors, so that's myself and Aaron Patton, who's got a background in hospitality and also currently works in the apprenticeship area and finding youth apprenticeships, which is great. We're hoping to draw upon to help staff as well. And then we've appointed Steve Ayton as manager, and Steve comes in with a very broad range of experience, growing up as a farmer, done a bit of everything, has been a banker in insurance and ran businesses before and teams before, so good people management skills. So sort of the three of us are the management structure per se.
And Trent, next question for you, just in relation to if I buy shares and for whatever reason I wanted to sell them, can you just explain sort of how you think that'd happen? I'll firstly say that as opposed to, say, the ASX, this isn't a listed company, so there isn't a secondary market for it. But I think, as the CEO of the pub, how do you think that will go down if I wanted to come in and say, listen, guys, I've got $1,000 or $10,000 of shares. I'd like to sell them for whatever reason. How would you be able to facilitate that?
Yeah, so as you said, it's not like the ASX. You can't just sort of list them any day of the week, but we want to make sure that's still possible, and it is possible to sell those shares. There is a minimum holding period of 12 months, but after that, our plan is to sort of facilitate call it a transition, a share transfer period where we'll sort of each year and probably coincide with the release of annual results, sort of give a indicative valuation where we think it's worth, and offer, if people are interested in buying more or selling. Part of the rules of the company will be that basically those shares should be, certainly in the first instance, purchased by the existing holders, and that will tend to be the larger holders. And that's just about keeping that group nice and tight. It's also important to make sure if you want to have a shareholding, get in now, because it's you're not going to be able to pick them up on a secondary market. You're going to have to get in now. But we'll sort of help facilitate that. And as I say, primarily we'll look to buy it internally, and possibly the larger holders buy that. And we'll also potentially at some point, if there's reason to do some broad share buybacks, and that might be the fact that we've got a nice cash reserve, but we don't have retained earnings to pay a dividend. So we might go, look, there's an offer for people that want to do a share buyback. We can $100,000 worth of shares we're prepared to buy back this time. So those are sort of the ways that in the future people might be able to sell their shares.
Just for those online, I've got a few more questions for Trent, but if you do have any questions that you'd like to ask Trent, please just put them down in the chat box there, and we'll be able to ask Trent on your behalf. So please put down any questions. Trent, I'm interested in just a bit more detail around the size of the raise and the total cost of the pub and the land and what goes on there. I know that we're looking at a $2.5 million raise at a maximum level.
Yep.
At a minimum level, it's $2 million. If we don't raise the $2 million, then the transaction doesn't go ahead. Can you just give a bit more color to the raise and the debt facility, et cetera, and how that all stacks up for those that sort of wanting to invest, a decent chunk of money? They're going to be looking at sort of the financials and the I guess the ins and outs of the deal and the negotiation in more detail.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I say, that's the raise amount, the 2 to 2.5, and as I say, we've worked on 2 million being able to get the deal done. The actual agreed purchase price for the whole lot is 3.85 million. So obviously above that, and we've worked on numbers of needing total capital of around the 4.2 plus to allow costs involved in the whole process, including this raise process, stamp duties, all the rest, as you can imagine. And then allowing that initial capital workflow. So we will be taking a debt facility out to help facilitate that. And that'll be around that $1.9 million mark. But we've also already got some private investment which has come into to make up that gap as well.
Okay, terrific. I just wanted to sort of then outline timetable or mooted timetable going forward. We're currently in a period called expression of interest period, EOI is the acronym for that. So what we're wanting people to do, and this has been open now for a week, on the on-market website, onmarket.com.au, you'll find the tile for the Dargo pub. You need to go in and register your interest. That just entails putting down your name, registering how much money you're thinking you're looking to invest, and your email address. We take that on board, and the next phase that we enter into, and that'll be roughly in 2 weeks' time. We're looking sort of roughly around that Tuesday, May 16, which will mean we've been in expression of interest period for 3 weeks. we will switch the deal to live. It'll only be live to a private audience, and that private audience will be those that have expressed their interest. At the moment, it's going quite well. A couple of hundred people. I think it's roughly around $5 million and growing over the course of the last week. Trent's been very active. I know you're in the Barnsdale Advertiser today with Who Wants to Buy a Pub. I'm sure that's getting a lot of attention from people reading that. You did an investor session last night. You've got another one tonight. There's a terrific video there. It has been emailed out to a number of people, the on-market page. So there is a lot of attention and engagement going on. It is open for another 2 weeks, but I have to stress to those that are online, if you don't register your interest, you won't get an email in that private period. It then will be in a private period for let's say a week. It may meet its maximum in that period of time and may never actually get out publicly on a public scale to everyone. So it's important that you register your interest and get on that EOI list, and we'll make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to invest at that moment on that roughly in 2 weeks' time, May 16. There is a question coming in from Kelly. Will there be any ongoing financial commitment once the initial purchase of shares is complete? I'll say to Trent if you want to answer that, but I know the answer, but I'll let you handle that.
I'll take that one, and as previous life as an accountant, I can probably give a bit of color around that too. No, the only cost is your investment. There's no upfront or ongoing, management fees or anything like that. So as ordinary shares, that's it. That's your investment, no cost. And I have personally had a couple of questions around that risk factor. And one thing which gives you a bit of comfort, as an ordinary shareholder, you cannot be called on to pay for liabilities of the business. So, your risk is limited to the amount you invest.
Yeah. I think it's important to say that you're an ordinary shareholder. The company, your return on investment primarily, it's not like you're going to list on the ASX. You're not a company in that regard. You're probably not going to have a trade sale at any particular time in the near distant future. It's a long-term investment in terms of investment horizon. The ROI for you would be ROI being return on investment would be those investor rewards, and also any dividends that you would like to pay. And I think that's your aim. If you want to sort of give a little bit of insight into your dividend policy, potentially what you're aiming to achieve over the next sort of couple of years.
Yeah, and obviously we are sort of limited in what we can sort of promise or guarantee and guide, but our intention is certainly to be paying dividends. We're shareholders too, so that's how we get rewarded as well. So we're aligned with you from that point of view, and we're working on returns similar to what you would expect from a publicly listed company, or possibly even a little bit better in an ideal world. Obviously the first 12 months or so, we will be settling in and then once we sort of settled in, we will look to be paying, subject to cash flow and capital requirements, etc. Look to be paying an annual dividend.
I know you've got some ideas in relation to improvements and opportunities to sort of grow the revenue of the company or of the pub in future years. Do you just want to outline a few of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So like anything, it's important we once we sort of come in here, understand the lay of land before we make any big decisions. But what we do foresee straight away or that will be happening is, as I mentioned before, some implementation of some point of sale systems, stock management systems, those sorts of things. From that perspective, which will actually we expect to give a bit of uplift and make sure all revenue is captured. And then we'll be also looking at ways to drive traffic here. And so, events, and that's a broad term. There'll be, the pub already does some great events throughout the year, but looking to increase that a bit, particularly in the quieter periods. And so that may be pub run events or hotel run events where we put on an extra band or different things, as well as partnering with other organizations, tour groups, community groups, those sorts of things. And private events. It's a great place to come and have a wedding or have your 50th birthday party. Just sort of trying to market that a bit more as well. So there are a few of the initial things we know. There are a few other things we've sort of got up our sleeve as well, but we sort of have to wait till we get in here and look at what's going to work and then move forward from there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think the key one is you're not looking to change things too quickly, if at all, and any changes you do make sense. A couple of questions coming in the chat room for you, Trent. Is it willable? Are the shares that you buy willable to your children? You're the accountant, so I'll leave that one with you.
Yeah. So generally in those rules around, transferring, and if you sell them, it has to be to the existing ownership. One exception is that it can be transferred to an associate. So that's basically your family members.
Mm-hmm. And next question, total number of shares to be allocated, I guess at the minimum, at the maximum, and the share price that you I think it's $50, is that right?
Yeah, so we've allocated $50 per share. The minimum raise will be 40. So if it's 2 million, it'll be 40,000 shares. Maximum raise 50,000 shares. And after the all settled, there'd be a maximum share issue of 100,000 shares on issue.
Yeah, and then a question from Greg, just in relation to sort of the level of ordinary shareholders. Every share issued will be an ordinary share.
Correct.
The minimum parcel is $400. There is no cap on the maximum parcel, so you can bid as much as you want. The caveat there is that ASIC requires you, if you want to bid more than $10,000, just to get a sophisticated shareholder certificate signed by your accountant, which we then need to look at, so we can approve that bid beyond $10,000 mark. And I think there's a whole heap of different investor awards. What's your top level investor award there, Trent, and what do you get for that?
So I say the $10,000 mark, that's the 10% off, the owner's weekend, $200 voucher, and the meal for life. The other one we also have for those larger investors, so $25,000 plus, is some options which will come to put in some additional investment down the track. And that is actually capped at the number of people, 25, I think we're working on at the moment. There'll be some more information around that in the offer document to give some finer print on that one. But there'll be basically some, for those larger investors, some options to purchase a bit more down the track too.
One of the things you can't put in the offer document, and the offer document for those online will be available when we move into the private deal room. One of the things you can't put in the offer document is sort of forecast revenue. Are you able to just give a rough, maybe percentage basis on where you see that happening? For those sort of wanting to put in a decent amount of money, I'm sure you'll be looking at the financials. There is a P&L in the offer document, but it is retrospective, goes back to sort of FY19, financial year 2019. Are you able to sort of give us a rough outline of where you see it going, maybe after you take hold of it, FY24 and beyond, just in terms of revenue numbers?
Yeah, look, our intention and sort of what we've been working on, the business has been turning over, or what's been on books has been showing a bit over $2 million per year net of GST. We see probably when we capture all the revenue, probably about a 15% uptick in the short term. And then we'd like to see sort of a nice steady growth from there, looking at that sort of 5 to 10% year on year from there. So it's not, we're not coming here and go, we're going to triple it in 1 year or anything like that. But we can see some very realistic, expectations for that nice steady growth from what's been recorded in the past. Okay,
so that's all the positive stuff. I'm not looking for the negative stuff, but I do want you to outline to make it sort of evenly balanced the risk side of things. You are obligated under the regulatory guide through ASIC to sort of outline risks. Can you sort of run through a couple that you think are sort of real and pertinent there for the business?
Yeah, I mean, like anything, there are risks, and a lot of them are common business risks. Staffing is one, which we're as I say, already making, with who we're getting involved in that, some to manage that through that we can have adequate staffing the whole time. Being located where we are, tucked up in between the mountains here, there's obviously the likes of a bushfire risk. Once again, obviously the relevant insurances. Something which we will be doing is actually also looking at other additional bushfire mitigation systems for the location here and those sorts of things too. We've obviously done a preliminary risk analysis on the whole lot, but a part of one of the very early action items for us when we actually come in here, we'll be doing quite a detailed risk analysis to see where we can mitigate. Obviously, you can never mitigate absolutely everything, but making sure we can, as much as possible, mitigate risks.
Question for you then on timing. Subject to a successful crowdfunding raise, we'll close that off. It'll be probably by the end of May. What does settlement and timing before I'm a shareholder with my coin and I can come in and have my first beer as an owner of the pub? What's that timing look like? Yeah,
look, we're working on around a mid-June settlement period. So, as I say, subject to the successful raise, and obviously there's a bit of administration which goes on there with the issuing the shares, the funds being released and stuff. So we're really targeting a mid-June sort of a settlement.
Okay. Yep. I don't think there's any more shareholders. Any more questions there from potential shareholders? Greg had a question. Can shareholders be timeshare and accommodation? How would that work on coming into your accommodation in relation to how people, I guess, if you're oversubscribed with 1,000 shareholders and everyone wants to come in and take a room, and you've got 11, is it 11 rooms you've got there? How would that work?
Yeah, it's not a timeshare on the accommodation per se. Obviously, it's all publicly available and using the regular booking systems. Yeah. So I suppose in short, no, there's not a timeshare on the accommodation, or hard to give a preference per se. Yeah. From that capacity though, just to touch on that, there's the 11 rooms at the motel. We've also got the 4 log cabins here, great rustic log cabins. They each sleep 8 people. A bunk room within the hotel, and then there's also the campsite, and that's very popular as well. For people to come.
There's how many sites in the campsite, Trent?
It's not site per se. I think they've said they've had up to 400 or 500 people camping there on the big weekends. Okay. It runs right down to the river there. Yeah. And so like that's often a lot of the people come and stay in those campsites too. So it's a sort of a unpowered sort of a campsite sort of arrangement, and people are familiar with the pub camping. It's becoming popular around Australia at the moment. It's that sort of an arrangement. Yeah.
Conscious of time, we've been going for half an hour, which is, I think, it's a good info session. No more questions in there. Just to wrap things up, just your sort of 30 seconds on 1 or 2 or 3 reasons why we should become a shareholder in the pub. It's obvious, right?
I think, and that's the thing.
Sum things up for everyone.
It seems cliche to say, look, it speaks for itself, but I think, for the people who are local, they know that they want to be a part of it because they know how special this place is, and really making sure that it stays special long into the future. Yeah. That's an absolute key there. There are those benefits. So for the people who are regulars, I'm sure they'll get a better benefit out of their discounts and that. And and once again, without sort of making promises, as we can't do that, unfortunately. But for me, it makes sense as an investment. And I wouldn't have gone down this path if it didn't make sense for that reason, for my own energy and funds as well too. So I'll leave it at that.
Good answer. I'd like to thank everyone for taking half an hour out of your day just to come and join us. Just the call to action, I guess, for those online, I think it's a pretty simple one. Head on to, if you haven't got the offer page in front of you on the website, head into onmarket.com.au. It's there on the homepage. There's a tile there. You press here for more information. You can read then. There's a great video there, fantastic video, one of our favourites. Really well done. You'll see Trent make a couple of cameo roles as an extra in there, but he's not the star of the show. It's very informative. And also then your call to action is to register your interest. And that's a 30-second to 60-second exercise. I guess the other thing is, for those that aren't online, if you've got friends or family or anyone who isn't aware of it, please share that that website link out to them. As I mentioned, from a timing perspective, we plan to be in the expression of interest period for 3 weeks. This is, I think, day 8 of that 21-day period. Day 21 is roughly around that Tuesday, May 16. From that date, everyone will get an email to say, we are live. It'll be roughly around that date. We are live. Please come in now and bid. And everyone will be able to bid. There are, as I mentioned, limitations on your retail and sophisticated investor stuff. But that's sort of, if you're investing over $10,000, then maybe contact us and we can help you out with that. But I think that's pretty much all. But thank you, Trent. Thank you guys for coming online. It's a great session, very informative. And we look forward to closing off a really successful and interesting and fun deal it's been, I have to say. So we've had a great time, and we look forward to the success of the campaign.
Absolutely, thank you, and look forward to welcoming a lot of you up here for the owners weekend.
Yeah, that sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.